Alright, we're going to classify all this stuff from the front end of 2002 Dodge Dakota as things that are not serviceable, or as they're listed as not serviceable. This was a job that we had to learn how they are serviceable. So this is a job we had to learn how to get the parts disassembled as we went along. So I'll start with the half shafts. Problem number one is typically they say that you can't rebuild a half shaft, but in truth you can. I chose not to in this case, but all that actually needs to be done is, it's a rather detailed process, but you can actually disassemble these boots and replace them if they're shredded. Again, I chose to just replace them, so I only took off this one half, but it is possible. So the second thing is that's pretty interesting is if you use your truck at all, it's going to rust in the front end. The seals that they put in place aren't the greatest, so you're going to have to try and figure out some ways to get these seized parts apart. Now, in particular, you can see here I've got the two front stub shafts. Anytime they talk about instructions about taking off the front half shaft, this is the inner part of the half shaft that would go towards the differential. So when they describe taking them off, they tell you to put a pry bar right behind this lip and press it out, okay? And it'll actually slip off the stub shaft that's in the differential. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen because, as you can see by this one, they're rusted in there. Can you see that?
Yep.
So, we had to get them pressed out. You can go to your local shop, or you can do what I did and just get sick and tired of doing that and buy your own 20-ton press. So, again, these fit in here like this, and they will get stuck. As you can see, there's just a snap ring on either side of them. This is the snap ring side that pulls out of the differential in the front, and this is the snap ring that pulls out of here. You should replace them. You may find that you can only get them from a dealer, but you need to get them. So that's the half shafts and their stub shafts. The next big issue is the lower ball joints. Again, they say they're not serviceable. Even a remanufactured lower control arm, even from a cheap place, is still $200 to $250. So, whereas the lower ball joints are relatively inexpensive, I believe around $50 a piece, and they're serviceable, meaning they have a grease fitting in them, whereas the old ones don't. So, now, when we first did them, we did this one first, and we had an H of a time getting the lower ball joint out. This is the collar from a rather substantial hand ball joint press. Now, when you do this, this collar is meant to receive the ball joint as it's removed. So, if you look closely, get that?
Yep.
This size collar fits pretty good right around this lip. So, if this collar was sitting on this lip and the ball joint pushed through from this direction, it would slip right in between. However, on these ball joints, you'll see that there's a taper in this edge. And here's one that's relatively undamaged upon removal. And you can see that there's a taper on the inside of the collar too. Okay. Now, that'll fit in there like that, and the taper will go in. Here's the trick. This taper ends up being so wide that the collar actually sits on top of the taper. You can see that if I reverse this. If I reverse this, you're going to see that that lip won't go through the center of the collar. Now, you can either get a collar that's a 1/16 of an inch bigger or whatever the actual size is. I'm sure Dodge makes some sort of special part. Or you can do like what we did, was put it in the press and made sure we were only holding on a little bit of a lip, because then what happens is you'll see, if you can, I don't know if you can zoom in that close, there's a little bit of a scuff right there. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
That scuff means that as we pushed it out that direction, it just pressed that lip out, the thin part of that lip out of the way. So, bottom line is you can't push them out. You just got to make sure you clear this edge. Otherwise, you'll just be pushing the ball joint against itself. Now, you wonder how we know that. When we first tried it, we couldn't get it out very easily. Not at all, as a matter of fact. We used the hand press. And then we got the 20-ton press. Realized at that point that we needed to try heating this up, which we did. We heated it up with just a normal hand propane torch for about 15 minutes. But in reality, what that actually did, if you look closely at this piece, it softened the metal up so that when this collar started pressing on it, it actually twisted and tore that lip, eventually getting it to come out. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
It got out, but more importantly, it made us realize what we were doing wrong. And when we went to do the second one with a couple of cranks on the 20-ton press, it just popped right out. So you just have to remember the trick here is the way this is tapered, that lip almost covers the entire area. There's almost no place to put a collar, so you got to get tricky with having it on the edge and making sure you have clearance.
Let me just get a close-up of that. How thin that surface is.
Now, we wouldn't have been able to do that without heating it up, my guess. Even with cold rolled steel plate for the 20-ton press. And the last thing before you're ready to do them is to take the control arm bushings out, which we simply took a socket, placed it on that, laid it edgewise in the press, and just pressed them out using a collar like this, and pressed it through. And then the entire control arm is ready to reservice. New bushings and new ball joint.